Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. On this video we'll be making this very beautiful dress. It has a gather detailing around the shoulders and around the under bust area. It also has this slanted gathers around the hip area. This is going to be a very detailed video, so if that's something you're interested in, keep watching and don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you're yet to. And let's get right into the video.
For this dress, we'll be using this fabric. I have about 3 yards of this fabric and I have this lining. This lining is not necessary for this dress, but I like to use lining for my own because it gives it a better finish and it makes the dress heavier. We'll keep this aside and we'll be drafting on my pattern paper. Before I start drafting, it's very important to know that our dress has 3 panels. So it's going to have the first panel that is going to start from the under bust. Then it's going to have the second panel that is going to go from the under bust to the hip line. Then the last panel is going to be the gathers down and it's going to be the third panel. We are just going to draft the first and the second panel. The third panel is just a very straight, long 14 inches wide fabric, so there is nothing to draft for that one. So we are going to first try to mark out our basics. For our basics, we have our shoulder line. We have from our shoulder to our chest line at 8 inches, shoulder to bust point at 10 inches, shoulder to under bust at 13 inches, shoulder to waistline at 16 inches, shoulder to hip line 23 inches. I'm going to draw a line across this line. Because our second panel, that's the one that goes from the under bust to the hip, is slanted, so I'm going to be adding extra 7 inches from our hip point. So I'll be marking at 30 inches. And this is going to be where our second panel is going to stop. Another thing is that before I started drafting, I folded my paper into two, and very soon you will see why I did that. For our first panel, we are going to place our shoulder divided by 2 on our shoulder line. Then we'll be adding about 4 inches to that. This is going to be like our sleeve length. The next thing I'm going to do is to place my round measurement. We're placing my bust round divided by 4 on my bust point. My bust round divided by 4 is 9.75. I'll place it here. On my waistline, I'll be placing my waist round divided by 4, which is 7.5. And on my hip, I'll place my hip round divided by 4, which is 10.75. I'll join these points with a curve. For our armhole, I'm going to be coming down with about 8 inches, and that is on our chest line. And from this chest line, I'm going to make a curve into our bust point like so. So this is going to be our armhole. I'm going to extend the line to our full length. The first panel starts from the under bust, then the second panel comes from the under bust downward, then the third panel is going to come from this full length and it's going to go down that way. So we have panel 1 and panel 2. So let's cut out and then we will adjust it. This is what we have, the first panel and second panel. I'm going to keep this second panel aside and go ahead and adjust this first panel. The first thing I want to adjust for this first panel is the neckline. I'm going to go in with about 3 inches, and this is where our neckline is going to start. Another thing I'm going to do is, because there is a very slant overlay in front, I'm going to be coming out with about 1.5 inches from this center line. And now I will be joining from this my neckline to this point at the under bust. Now this is what we have here, and this is like a half pattern. The next thing I'm going to do is to divide this pattern. We are going to use the splash and spread method.
After cutting the pattern into pieces like this, I'm going to draw a straight line on this fresh pattern paper just to serve as a guide, and I'll be placing the first pieces on that line, making sure that the bust line on the pattern is matching with the line that we have on our extra brown paper. Okay, so just watch what I'm doing.
After taping this first one down, I'm going to measure 4 inches from this first one, and I'll go ahead and place the second one after that 4 inches. So I'll make sure that this line, this under bust line, is on this line. So technically there is going to be a 4-inch space between every piece. So after taping down this second one, I'll measure another 4 inches and I'll place the next one, and I'll continue doing that till I get to the last one. Now after adding this extra sheet, I'm just going to go ahead and do what I did for others. Now after spreading it, I'm going to cut it out as one piece. This is going to be our first panel. When we finally gather these things, it's going to make sense. When I'm cutting, I'll be cutting this part on a fold, and I'll be cutting two pieces of this, one for the right and one for the left side, and it's going to go over the shoulder and towards the back. So let's go ahead and work on the second panel. So this is what we have initially for the second panel. If you notice from our inspo, the joining to the third panel is not straight, it has a curve. So I'm going to go ahead and curve this. So this is the curve I have. I'm going to cut this out. When I'm cutting on my fabric, I'll be cutting one pieces of this, and after doing that, I will also use this to cut for my back. And when I'm cutting the back, I'm just going to open this up and add my zipper allowance. For the first panel, we have this, and as you can see, we did cut this part in a fold and we cut out two pieces. So let me show you guys something. If I open this up this way, it's going to be looking like this, and there's going to be this very small layover here, and then I'm going to have to gather all this one. I'm going to gather it, and it's going to give that effect that we have in front. So this is our first panel. We are done cutting it out, and I'm going to go and interlock all the edges of this fabric before we start stitching. For the second panel, this is what we have for the front, and I also cut out lining pieces for this second panel. This lining is not even important. I'm adding the lining because I feel like it will give this a more luxurious feel. So I'm just going to stitch my lining to my main fabric, and I'll interlock it. For the back of that same center pieces, this is what we have. These back pieces, I just traced out this on a fresh pattern paper, divided it from the center, then added our zipper allowance. So this thing is just the same thing with the front, just that I divided it from the middle and then added zipper allowance. I also cut out lining for these pieces as well. I'm going to stitch the lining to the main fabric and interlock all the edges. Remember, I told you guys that we are going to have 3 panels, and this is going to be our last panel. This is the gathers that we have down. It's about 4 yards long, so this is just a very long pieces, and I'll still be attaching this one to even make it longer. Then I also cut out lining that is as long as it, just a very long pieces as well. It's now going to be shorter than the main fabric, so I'm also going to stitch it to the main fabric and interlock it. Now that I'm done interlocking all the edges, for this first panel, I'm going to take out one piece, and I'll be showing you what we'll be doing, and anything we do for these pieces, we do it for the second piece. I'm going to be hemming here with about half an inch all the way to the end, and I'll also be hemming this armhole area as well. After hemming this neckline and the armhole area, the next thing I'm going to do is to flip this thing into 2. I'm going to flip it into 2 so we can get the shoulder line, and this point right here is the shoulder line. So I'm just going to use my chalk to make mark on this point so it will serve as a guide, and I'll open it up. I'll use my needle and thread to run a loose stitch along this line. So just watch what I'm doing. Now that I'm done passing the thread, I'm going to even out these gathers to try and make sure that anything you stitch here, when you measure it, is the same thing with the second pair of this one, and everything that we have done for these pieces, we'll be doing it for the second. The next thing I'm going to do is to introduce our second panel. This is what we have for the front of our second panel. So what I'm going to do is to divide this waistline by 2. I'm going to make a mark here. To this side, I'll mark 1 inch, and to this other side, I'll mark 1 inch. So we have 2 inches here. The next thing I'll be doing is to place my first panel. I'll be placing it right side facing each other, like so. This one for the left is going to start from this point, and this second one is going to start from this other mark. So this one will be here, and this one will be here. So there's going to be a kind of overlay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to pleat the rest till I get to this armhole point. I'm going to pleat the rest of this fabric to fit into this space, and I'll pleat the rest of this side also to fit into that place. After pinning down this one side, I'm going to be stitching with about ½ inch across, and when we flip it over, we're going to have something that looks like this. So the same thing I did for this side, I'm going to do it for this side as well. After stitching this point, you see how it's looking. The next thing we'll be doing is to attach the back pieces. We'll be doing the same thing we did for the front. The difference is that we'll be acknowledging the zipper allowance that we have at the back. So this side is the longer side. I'm going to place this one, which is the longer one here. I'm just going to pleat everything here to fit into this waistline, and I'll be leaving about 1 inch. I'm just going to measure 1 inch here and mark it. So my pleats are going to start from this point all the way to the end. For this other side, I'm going to acknowledge my zipper allowance. So when I place it right side facing each other, I will take out 1 inch as well for my zipper allowance. Then I will pleat the rest to fit into the skirt, just like I did for the front. Guys, this is what we have after pleating for the back. This is what it is looking like. The next thing I'm going to do is to shape it. So I'll be flipping it this way, right side facing each other. You can see because we placed it correctly, this side is the same length, and this other side, when you flip it together, is also the same length around the shaping. So you see that everything is aligning nicely. The next thing I'm going to do is to use my measurement divided by 2 to shape it. Okay guys, after shaping it, this is what it's looking like. I'm going to go ahead and attach the last and the final panel. And to do that, remember that we just cut these very long pieces that is about 4 yards long. I'm going to measure from this point all the way around to this point, and what I have here is about 46.5 inches. I'm going to thread my needle and make sure that whatever thread I have here is up to or more than 46.5 inches, but it should not be shorter than 46.5 inches. And I'm going to sit down and calm down and start making loose stitches, and I'll make these loose stitches till I get to this other end of the pieces. Then I'll show you guys till I get to this other end of it. Now I'm done passing my thread. This is what I have. I'm going to bring the rest of my dress. This part is going to go in here. I'll pin it down. This other end is going to go in here, and I'll also pin it down. I'm going to find the middle of this very long thing by joining these ends together. So this is the middle. I'm going to make sure that it matches up with the middle of these front pieces. This is just so that our dress will be proportional. I'm going to go ahead and spread the rest of the gathers. I'll be adjusting it and making sure that it fits into the rest of this place like this, and stitch it together with about half an inch. After fixing it, this is what we have. Now the last thing we are going to do is to fix our zipper. We are going to fix our zipper, taking out that 1 inch zipper allowance. We'll be using invisible zip. So I'm going to go ahead and fix this zipper and close it off, and this is our final look. Hope this tutorial was explanatory. Hope it was easy enough. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with somebody that you think will be needing it. Leave a comment in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel if you're yet to subscribe, and see you in my next video. Bye.